Welcome to the Death Café. My name is Dr. Dearhart, and I am just thrilled to be here. I love the cafe. It's just a casual place to come and be together, ask questions, share your thoughts about death, dying, and beyond. Before we get started, I want to invite you to get yourself a nice warm cuppa and check in with us. Let us know where you're calling in from. That's the fun thing about a Facebook Live is people are all over the world checking in. So let us know where you're calling from or where you're checking in, and it'd be great to see that. Before we get started, I'd love to just take a moment to pause. I don't know what your day has been like in this world. Mine was a crazy, wonderful day, and I'd love to just take a moment to ground and bring all our hearts together. So when you're ready, go ahead and allow your eyelids to close. Make your way to your breath. Allow your breath to take you deeper within. Allow your breath to connect you with your body. Your feet on the ground or your feet in your shoes. Feeling any part of your body that is speaking to you. Any area that might be holding, having a sense of control or tension or pain. And use your slow, deep breaths to just wash over that area. Focusing on letting go. Connecting with the rhythm of your breath. Deeper than before. Weaving your way to the space inside that's quiet and peaceful. Weaving yourself to the space and place where we all connect. And give you a few breaths for yourself for whatever you're needing. Let's bring our connective energy together now and send out some loving kindness to those all over the world that might be suffering, especially thinking of Ukraine, but anybody that's suffering in this moment. May they feel safe. May they feel free from harm. May their mind, body, and spirit be connected with divine wisdom and divine grace. May they feel loved, cherished, and honored. And may they always know they are love. With love from our hearts to yours. Beautiful. Well, welcome. If you're just checking into the Death Cafe, let us know where you are in the world. Let us know if this is your first cafe. And while I do a little brief introduction on what a Death Cafe is, go ahead and chat in any comments you have, any questions you have, any concerns you have about death, dying, and beyond. You came to a cafe for a reason, because there's a lot of other things you can do than to come to a death cafe. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe there was something on your mind. Hi, Saneem. Welcome. Lovely to have you here from Boston. So let us know what's on your mind, what brought you here, and how we can have this conversation this evening. You know, the Death Cafe identifies not only a movement, but an individual gathering like we're having tonight as part of the movement. The Death Cafe began in Switzerland by a gentleman by the name of Bernard Krietz. Held his first, what he called Café Mortel in 2004. And then later a British website designer, John Underwood, got inspired to host a death cafe in his home in London in 2011. As of today, there's over 13,000 death cafes around the world and in over 81 countries. It's quite amazing. So many people are gathering and many people are having these conversations. Death cafes are run nonprofit. There's never a charge for them. The goal is to create a respectful, safe, confidential space with no intention of any leading or any products. It's really a space for you. If we were gathered together, which I hope to go back and do soon, I'd offer you some tea and chocolate. So make yourself a cup of tea and sit back and relax. The overall objective of the Death Cafe is really to expand awareness of how death is part of life, or how important it is to have these conversations actually to inspire our lives. Mm-hmm. We cannot magically take death away. We can't make it disappear from our lives, nor completely erase the sadness and other forms of distress associated with death-related issues. However, we can talk about death. We can share our insights and our attitudes and learn from each other and strive together to cope more effectively with dying, death, and bereavement. I've had the honor of leading death cafes for about 10 years now. And in the death cafes that I lead, it's never been the same. It's always inspiring and, believe it or not depressing. Because when we talk about death or concerns or our fears of any type, they shrink. They don't hold on to us as much. It's not under the covers. It's out, and we have the ability to see it, feel it, and look at it better. So it's a wonderful thing to do, is to come to a cafe and have these discussions. I'm hoping that you feel safe and can share with us what's on your mind. Mm-hmm. Besides the Death Cafe, why I started doing the Death Cafes 10 years ago was because of my passion for supporting people before, during, and after death. I have the privilege of being the founder of a nonprofit organization called The Heartway, where we provide advocacy, counseling, end-of-life care, which is death doula care, as well as educational programs and ministry. We have an end-of-life practitioner death doula training that we're very excited about to support others in supporting the dying and their loved one. There's such a need. And very early on in my work, about 37 years ago, I really started on the topic of death cafes. I started on the topic of fear. That's what brought me into this work, because I was so afraid of death. And then I volunteered at a hospice, and my first patient died in my arms. And with her, my life changed. That fear got dissipated. I got to see death, touch death, and it wasn't as frightening as I thought it was. In fact, there was something about it that made me feel at home, some truism that I hadn't yet acknowledged in my life. I went on to be a hospice social worker, and then started my own nonprofit because I wanted to continue to serve and expand those services. So there's always been a need, even these last 30-something years, to support people through their fear of death. And when we work through our fear of death, we really work through our fear of life and ignite it. So I'm so honored and delighted that you're here with us. I see some more people signed on. Do us a favor, if you've come on, let us know where you are in the chat box, where I know you're not in the chat box, but where you are around the world. And please, this cafe is for you. I can talk because I've been so blessed to learn from those that are dying in my education about death, dying, and beyond, and philosophies and religions and cultures. But this time is yours. This time is for you to ask your questions or your inquiries about dying, about death, about anything beyond the great mystery. There might be something that's moving through you. So please feel free to chime in. And while you're doing that, I want to read you something that comes up a lot in my work. And this is written from the late, great Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's from his book, I Am Not in Here. I'm going to read this to you, so it'll be quoted. Open quote. I have a disciple in Vietnam who wants to build a stupa for my ashes when I die, which is a big, beautiful statue and a place of honor. He and others want to include a plaque with the words, "Here lies my beloved teacher." I told them not to waste the temple land. Do not put me in a small pot and put me in there, I said. I don't want to continue like that. It would be better to scatter my ashes outside to help a tree grow. I suggested that if you still insist on building a stupa, have the plaque say, I am not here. But in case people don't get it, they could add a second plaque. I'm not out there either. If people still don't understand, then you can write a third and last plaque. I may be found in your way of breathing and walking. The body of mine will disintegrate, but my actions will continue me. In my daily life, I always practice to see my continuation all around me. We don't need to wait until the total dissolution of our body to continue. We continue in every moment. If you think that I am only this body, then you have not truly seen me. When you look at my friends, then you have not truly seen me. When you look at my friends, you see my continuation. When you see someone walking with mindfulness and compassion, you know he is my continuation. I don't see why we have to say I will die, because I can already see myself in you, other people, and in future generations. Even when the cloud is not there, it continues as snow or rain. It is impossible for a cloud to die. It can become rain or ice, but it cannot become nothing. The cloud does not need to have a soul in order to continue. There's no beginning and no end. I will never die. There will be a dissolution of my body, but that does not mean my death. I will always continue. Unquote. That was written again by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk that died earlier this year. And he speaks often of continuation, which he's not alone with many cultures in how they see life, death, and the afterlife. There is a theory that when we die, we continue, as Thich Nhat Hanh so beautifully says, that the energy from inside of us transforms into something else. As you know, cultures around the world have so many different perspectives on death, dying, and the afterlife. What are your thoughts? What do you think about Thich Nhat Hanh's beautiful little story there? Do you feel you will continue? Or what happens to you after you die? If you're just signing on, let us know where you're from and anything that's on your mind this evening. I remember when my daughter was very young and she'd ask me this question about what happens after we die. I usually asked a question with the question. I know you're not supposed to do that. What do you think that happens? Because I didn't want to mislead her. I didn't want to mislead her. I wanted her to form and find her opinion and value in herself and her life and in afterlife. She said, I don't know, Mommy. And she said, maybe we just continue. And then I said, what do you think we continue as? She thought herself. She thought she would be out there in the sky. She was a little girl, maybe about 7 or 8, somewhere out there in the sky. And I asked her if it scared her. She said no, but that she would miss me if I wasn't there with her. So we all have kind of our thoughts and feelings. And I have to be honest, nobody knows what happens after we die. We have exquisite people that have shared their near-death experiences and gives us a glimpse into the great mystery, a glimpse into what happens maybe with consciousness after our body dies. But nobody's been dead for a long time. Nobody has died for several years, for example, and come back to tell us. We have mediums that connect with spirits and share different aspects, but we truly don't know. My point really is what matters most is your thoughts, your perspective, and your beliefs in what happens after we die. Those thoughts, those beliefs, those feelings, those experiences you have, they bring meaning to you. They bring purpose to your life, and they fill in a gap for us. It matters not what that is. What matters mostly is what you believe. And that's good enough. You know? Many people express what happens after this life. But if you don't believe that, it may not bring you as much comfort. It's a phenomenal contemplation. What do you think happens after we die? Do we continue like Thich Nhat Hanh shares? What part of us continues? Many cultures and religions believe that it's spirit and soul. What is that meaning for you, spirit and soul? What continues? Is it the witness of our own experience? The person, the aspect of us witnessing our life journey? Is it that divine place that when you look at a film or a piece of art, or you're out in nature with the awe, and you get a sensation that you can't describe, something that is awesome and beyond words? Is that the space that continues on in life? Or do you have a belief that we don't continue? Then what happens? That leads me to another question. How does that inspire our life? I think greatly. You know, death inspires our life because it has some finality to it. As Thich Nhat Hanh said in this beautiful quote I read earlier, that our body dies. But for his belief system, the aspect of himself continues. His essence is in each of us, is in the tree, is in his friends. And that's very evident with his millions of people that follow him and share his words and his heart and his unconditional love that he shared. It's beautiful contemplation. But the inspiration comes from the fact that this life as we know it has a time clock. It will end. Therefore, how do we want to live if we only have a certain amount of time? Hi, Emma from Yuba City. Welcome to have you back. Feel free to share any comments, and I'll get to some of the comments in just one moment. But I'm drawn to a client I was speaking with you earlier today that is nearing the end of her life. She was filled with fright, scared to leave her son. She wasn't scared of dying, but didn't want to be in pain when she died. So we processed through pain issues that with the proper medical support, one doesn't have to be in pain. There's excellent end of life care through death doulas, end of life practitioners in hospice providing the medical support for people. And then we talked about how to have that conversation with her son. There's so much fright in that. It's our fear that's being projected out. Her son is pulling away because he's scared. They haven't quite had the time to have that conversation. It's an important conversation. We have opportunity to teach our children not to fear death. Young children are actually not afraid of death until they feel our fear. And then they said, oh, it's something to fear. That's what it was like for me when I was a child. Everybody around me feared death, so they kept death away from me. And I became terrorized of death. Nobody said anything. I wasn't allowed to visit people that were dying or participate in it. So I, as a young girl, determined this has got to be awful if my parents won't let me see this or be near it. So I grew so fearful of death, I was afraid of life and did everything I could to prevent hurting myself or dying. It was a very scary time in my life, very scary. And it wasn't until I became that hospice volunteer in my mid-20s where I started to touch death. I started to embrace it. I started to become friends with it. I started to come to terms with it. And I started to utilize it as a way of inspiring my death. We really don't know when our last day is going to be here. So I want my loved ones to know I love them. I want to have a chance, if I can, to fulfill whatever bucket list I've created. I wanted to have a chance to write this training program. I want to have a chance to hold someone's hand at the end of life. I want to have a chance for my daughter to feel loved and supported and know that she can be anything she wants. That's how it inspires our life. Let me read a couple of the chats. Saying, I never had a strong faith in any religion. I believe in personal experiences which cannot be denied. I've had clear messages from my dead father which made me think there was some continuation. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I think we might get some of these messages, as you call it, from those we've lost, our ancestors, if I may call them, those that have died. And those messages come in all kinds of forms. I have an ancestor altar in my house where I have ashes from my sister who died. My younger sister died a couple years ago of end-stage breast cancer. My mom died 3 weeks later of congestive heart failure. And my beloved support dog for the Heartway, Daisy, died a few months before that. And my love mom died a few months after that. And I spend a lot of time at this altar, sitting, meditating, talking to them. And during those times in my life, especially the hard times, I ask them for signs. I ask them to help me through something. You know what? I always get an answer, usually in my heart or some synchronicity that happens out there in the world. It's kind of awe-inspiring. And those are the ways that I have a belief that there's some continuation, even if I might not be able to describe it. Yeah. Miss M, anything on your mind tonight that you checked in? What are your thoughts of what happens after this life? And And are you afraid to die? When I really think about death and not existing in this level of consciousness, sometimes I get a fright. It's a somatic fright in my body. And that's our ego consciousness, because it is fearful of death. Its total job is to control and help us take action in this life. It's very, very important. But without that existing, who are we? Who are we without that existence? Well, that's where some of the practices really help us. Meditation, yoga nidra, those all help us get in touch with different layers of consciousness. Okay? When you meditate, when you do yoga nidra, the mind is relaxed. The brain waves change, and we connect with different layers of our consciousness. The layers beyond words, the layer of sensation, of feeling, of divinity, where we may or may not connect with the divine energy that's out there. You know? What are your thoughts? Emma, thank you. Curious if there has ever been any progress in the local area of Yuba and Nevada County on options for green burials becoming a tree. My friend's mother, who is in her 80s, is very interested. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely question, Miss M. And we're not too far. I'm in Yuba County as well. I'm in Nevada City right now. So there are green burial sites in and around Nevada City, but I have not seen yet being able to be buried as a tree in this area. You know, those communities are very, very small here, and these concepts are growing. However, there are some options that can be quite interesting and beautiful. You know, we have the options of gathering our ashes, burying them in a garden, burying the ashes and putting a tree on top of it in our home or a plant. There is a new type of green burial that also isn't in our area, and I don't believe I think California has just approved it, and we'll see some expansion on it, and that is composting our body. Just like you would compost your vegetables and your leftovers, there is now a composting machine that can compost the human remains. And then you have this compost materials that you can sprinkle in your garden and help to fertilize the land and grow, which is a beautiful way, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, to return us to the earth. So beautiful options for green burials. We will see more and more green burial options. And for those of out there that are not as familiar with green burial is a type of option for disposing of our bodies that don't utilize a lot of biofuel, that don't take up a lot of space, that help to preserve and nurture the earth with our body. Cremation actually uses a lot of biofuel, uses a lot of electricity, uses a lot of fuel to get that machine hot to be able to cremate a body. So it's not the most earth sensitive process. And then in burials, we have embalming, and embalming is a high toxicity liquid that gets injected into the body to preserve it, for it to look natural. But once you bury somebody, whether you bury them right in the ground or in a vault, that toxin's in the earth. Embalming really came to us during the Civil War, when soldiers died and they had to bring soldiers home that preserved the body for their family. So bombing really isn't a necessary task to do. It's something that got started many years ago. So embalming is not at all a green process. But mortuaries use it when somebody's viewing a body. It's another way we kind of hide death, to be honest. Let's make ourselves out to look as who we were before we died. It's not who we are anymore. It's another way I think we put up a barrier to honoring death, to embracing this happens to our body. We will decompose. This body, this container for our spirit, for our heart, for our soul. So there are many, many green burial options. I wrote an article for the Bodhi Tree magazine on green burial and all kinds of interesting ways that people are burying themselves in the ocean. People are now going out into space. There are many options for burials. You find that on our website at theheartway.org. You can take a peek and take a look at that. And probably on our Facebook page, they have some more. We have some more stories about that. I think we just posted an article on not a green burial, but an in-home funeral for one of our clients. And an in-home funeral, for those of you that might not be familiar, is when somebody dies at home. An end-of-life practitioner, a death doula, is there to support the family. And we bathe the body, oil the body, and dress it, and prepare it in a sacred way for burial or dispensation, whatever that is, cremation or burial. And usually someone's laid to rest at home. We preserve the body to be able to be at home for half a day or a few days, so people can come and say their goodbyes to their friend, their loved one, their family, and usually take some time to honor that body, dress it beautifully, possibly put on makeup if that's important, jewels, crystals, flowers, things that were important to that person. So it now becomes a sacred place around the loved one that has died for people to bear witness, for people to say goodbye to this body, to love, to nurture, to heal, and to grieve, to say goodbye. It's very important. One of the things that I've experienced over the years with supporting clients at the end of life and in-home funerals and having families participate in the care of loved one in their dying process, caring for their bodies, they're touching death. They're near it. And it gives them an opportunity to face their fears, gives them an opportunity to love someone that they have cherished in their life. It is so sacred. I don't even have the words to describe what the experience is like. You can read about it. You can see it on television. You can see it plastered all over the media. But being in the same room with someone that's dying and someone that has died is beyond words. It takes us to that place of divinity, that otherworldness, and that place of awe. I can't describe it. I'm humbly trying. There's nothing like it in life, and it is the greatest leveler. It brings us home to our soul. We live as if we're not going to die, yet we are. How does that affect our life? Are we happier? Not thinking about death? I had someone today that described beautifully, a client, one of the points I'd like to express now. She's got a terminal illness and her life will end with this disease. She's doing clinical trials to try and give her some more quality of life and extend her life. And she also wants to prepare for death, but she's afraid to prepare for death, to talk about death while she's fighting to live. How do those two oxymoronic experiences work together? Well, they work together perfectly. One of the fears is that if we talk about death, it's going to hasten death. It's going to make it so. And that is just a non-truth. What it will do will free us up to live life more fully. So here's someone that's worrying so much about her son, worrying about her finances, worrying about making sure things are in order before she dies, and also spending this energy trying to live and focus on healing. Which way do you go? Well, it's a yes and, not an either or. Because when she frees up her energy from the worry of handling financial tasks, of talking to her son about her life and death, of facing her own fear, that energy that's occupied in the body will be freer, and she'll have more energy for healing. So it's a necessity to healing, really, is talking about our fears, is talking about our death. It's weighing heavy on our mind. You know, we talk about mind, body, and spirit, yes? Like they're three different aspects of our being. Mind's over here, body's here, spirit may be here. Well, they're absolutely interconnected. You can disconnect it in words, but you can't disconnect it in our life journey and experience and being. When your mind is worrying about something, and worrying is worrying about something in the future, worrying, your body takes that energetic hit. It takes that tension. You're stressed, and you produce what? Stress hormones that create inflammation in the body, that affect the immune system. It so beautifully weaves together, yet we've compartmentalized it. When we start to integrate our essence, we will continue to heal. We will find more peace in our heart. Practices like meditation and yoga nidra are beautiful ways to start to experience the integration of our being. Just like Thich Nhat Hanh speaks of our continuation, he speaks of the aspect of ourself that doesn't die in our body. Maybe it gets transformed into energy, gets transformed into spirit. Really beautiful contemplations in continuing to find our peace. And when we're searching for our peace, living in our peace, we're living in our heart, we're living in our full being, and we love more, and we take in life more. Isn't that what this is all about? Living this life to the fullest. It's all we have, all we know. Let me get to another comment. Ash makes a beautiful natural ceramic glaze. A part of me wanted to be a glaze on a pot. Beautiful. I've always wanted to go inside those high temperature kilns. That fire, yes. And, you know, continuation of the topic of green burial and ashes. There are so many ways to work with our loved ones' ashes, from jewelry to ceramic to tattoos, to jewels to diamonds, ways of keeping our loved ones close. And when we can keep our loved ones close that have died, we continue to have the conversation with them. We continue to relate to death and beyond. And that will inspire this life. That will set us free to live more fully. It is ironic. How can death inspire life? In death, it's over. Well, I wonder how we cannot not talk about it. we're really riddled with fear. And that can create so many challenges later. There's a lot of sudden deaths. We haven't had those conversations. If we haven't planned for death by doing our advanced directives or sharing with our loved ones what our wishes are, we've left them high and dry. I've worked with so many families that are in such stress and turmoil after a loved one died, not knowing what their wishes were for burial, not knowing where the important paperwork are, not knowing where the passwords are. And yes, on top of that, we've lost the ability to grieve, to say goodbye, and we've complicated grief. We're resilient human beings. We can get through it. But all that energy can be prevented by talking about death, by sharing it, by taking a look at it, how it inspires our life and allows us to live more. There's some cultures that don't grieve. It's amazing. When I travel, I go to cemeteries, I go to mortuaries, I go to cremations. So if you want to travel with me, that's what we'll do on part of our trip. We'll also have fun. But I will never forget being in Bali and witnessing a cremation of a quite prominent villager. And Bali is the Balinesians are very pious, and they have big, huge celebrations with flowers and music and dance and food and conversation and singing. It's quite joyous. So I got invited in and was in this environment that was so beautiful. And the loved one that had died, he was the patriarch of this family, was laid to rest. And he was adorned with flowers and money and questions and all kinds of beautiful things. And I noticed there was all this joy and honor, sacredness around, but I didn't witness any sadness. They weren't sad. When it was time to move from the house and move outside, they had built like a beautiful, what I would call a rose bowl float with flowers, and they put his body on this float, and the son and the mother sat on top on some chairs they had built, and then the community lifted up this float, and they carried it, and we paraded to the cremation grounds. But I asked the guide that was with me, I said, please forgive me. I hope I'm not being disrespectful. Is anybody sad here? And he said, no. I said, are they going to miss him? We really believe, as he was a Balinesian, that they're going to a better place. And we're really happy for them. That really was awe-inspiring to me. Because yes, I can have some happiness for someone that has been ready to die or that has suffered a lot. But I have sadness because a part of me is going to miss them as well. And that's our truth, and that's a reality. But it was really amazing to me that this beautiful culture had no sadness. They totally celebrated death. And that really carved and etched in my soul the many, many ways to approach death, to feel about death. Not right, not wrong. I don't know if there's a good death or a bad death. It's death, and there's many facets of that. Saneem, let me get to your question now. How can we support dying children without being overwhelmed by the sadness of it? It is an excellent question. And I had another client I was working with today whose parents of not a young child that was dying, but their child was dying, was so overwhelmed with their emotions that they couldn't be present. They couldn't spend time with her because the emotions were so huge. Well, first of all, my number one suggestion is to feel, to feel, to feel, to feel. We don't let ourselves feel. We rationalize our emotions. We shut down. Maybe we feel for a little bit. We're not supported in feeling, and it's messy. It's messy. So that's one of the most important things, is to feel. And if you're sad that a child is dying, your child or another child, it's okay. And it's important to have those feelings of sadness. Now, how you deal with the overwhelmness will vary a little from person to person. But number one is to feel. Number two is to get some support. Talk to someone that has some experience, that you feel safe expressing yourself. Those feelings are guides. Those feelings are teachers. They also are one of the many facets of love. We're sad because we love this child so much. Yeah. We're sad because they may be suffering, or we're going to miss them. One of the interesting things that also can happen, but I want to share number 3 before I do that, and that's doing some journaling, writing your emotions, writing your feelings, letting them out to help organize the overwhelmness of the experience. One of the fascinating things in Western culture is when someone's dying, someone has died and we grieve, we often turn the lens, the focus lens, from the person that's dying or has died to ourselves. And we lose another connection with the dying and the dead. It's an important distinguishing factor here to spend a little time with. Yes, we have our emotions and they're very important to feel. But what also helps us is shifting that lens onto the dying. What is this child needing? What are they feeling? How can we be present for them? Just like towards the very end of life, when someone slips into a different level of consciousness, and these are the places that we get hints of something bigger than ourselves and a different layer of consciousness. When someone's nearing the end of life, they might start seeing things and sharing who they're seeing, loved ones that have died, having memories from the past. It's not uncommon for us towards the end of life to ask for our mothers, the person that brought us into the world, to hold us on the way out. And I also am meeting people that are in their 80s and 90s are asking for their mothers. When we turn the lens on them, we start to look at how we can be present for them. When you are in the space of the dying, the best way to be is in your being, and as if they are fully in the room with them. Talk to them like they are here in the room with you, even if you can start to see that they've started to leave this world, and we have to leave this world to go wherever we're going to go next. Talk to them like I'm going to hold your hand. I see that you may be cold. I'm going to put a blanket on you. Don't speak like they're not there. Oh, they're close to death. It may be any minute. Have we prepared the funeral? Hearing is our last sense. Treat them like they're right there with you. That'll give you another opportunity to love them and be present. Our children and those that are dying, they need our love. They just need our love and support. We have the privilege of being present and honoring them. Hold them in their love, physically, emotionally and spiritually. Yes, you can be sad. Yes, you can have tears in front of those that are dying, letting them know that you're sad, but you're right there with them, loving them through. Remember, life is a process, death is an event. It's really about living until we take our last breath. Dying is just a diminishing of life, it's still life. It's life letting go, starting to close the curtains. But it's still life. There's still so much to glean and learn from the living. But if you're feeling overwhelmed in life and in dying, whether it's you or a loved one, it's okay. You're going to be okay. And seek the support that you need. It's beautiful end of life practitioners that have done this work and have held many and can hold your hand. I'm stunned, shocked, awed, and delighted when a few minutes with a client, even on a phone call or a Zoom call, they go from utter anxiety and terror. I hear that exhalation and my heart drops to tears of relief, knowing there's someone there to walk with them. You're not alone. You're not alone. Oh, beautiful, stimulating conversation. I hope the information has been supportive too. I want to check in to see if there's anything left that you're dying to say before we finish up. Know that you can find back Death Cafes on our Facebook page, also on our YouTube channel. So you can listen to these anytime, write in the comments, and we'll get back to you. And there's other support and educational information on our websites. Please feel free to check it out. Heartway is a nonprofit, and we don't charge for services at the end of life. So know that you can reach out, and that our goal is to serve anyone in need, irregardless of any stature, financial means, etc. So know that that's there. And if you're moved, come be a part of our organization. We're always looking for beautiful people to support. Anything in closing? Okay. Beautiful. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope that it has served you. I hope that it inspires your life. And I want to read one more closing poem to you. May I? When death comes, I want to step through the door full of curiosity and wondering. What is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as my brotherhood and a sisterhood. I look upon time as no more than an idea. I consider eternity as another possibility. I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field of daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, ending as all music does towards silence. In each body, a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bride's groom taking the world in my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. And that's by Mary Oliver. So beautiful. I want to be married to amazement and a bride's groom to wonder in the world. Isn't that beautiful? That's what death does. It inspires our life. I'm asked often, how do you want to die? I say slowly, and then I usually get that dirty look. Really? I say, yeah, I don't want to miss it. I'm really curious. And that curiosity keeps me in that child wonder of play. So, my friends, I bid you adieu. I wish you play. I wish you wonder. I wish for you to create the life in the world you want to live in. Check in with the Heartway. We've got lots of wonderful programs to support you in your life and at the end of life. And we're so happy to serve. Be safe, be love, and be you.